Not only did the British Open produce some great shots, some of them even happened in the middle of a 147 maximum break. But what was the best shot of the entire tournament? To find out, I'm going to take ITV's hot shots, combine it with some of the shots I found myself, and attempt to recreate all of them as accurately as possible in the fewest possible attempts. Playing most of these shots accurately is going to be a real challenge, but I have a feeling there'll be a few that aren't quite as difficult as they look, and this might be an example of that. Zhao Xintong hit great form in his match against Stuart Bingham, but is it really that tough to pot the pink here and nudge the red over the middle pocket? Time to find out. I was a little bit fortunate with the double kiss, but the shot itself was relatively straightforward. This next one's going to be a little bit more of a challenge as John Higgins lines up this crucial long pot. Looking to win the deciding frame here, John extracts a chance by potting the red and screwing the cue ball back off the blue for a bulk colour. This is harder than the previous shot, mostly because the yellow's in the way of my bridge hand. I would have liked to got this one a little bit quicker, and I didn't really pull the cue ball back far enough. Another long pot, this time allows Kyren Wilson to retain good position on the pink. Kyren was in danger of going 3-0 down against Barry Hawkins in this frame, so we can't overlook how vital this shot was in the course of the match. I very nearly got the cue ball into the correct place on my first attempt, but thought because I was bridging over the reds, it wasn't quite good enough. It definitely wasn't the most challenging of shots, but a good one to get under pressure. Judd trumps next, and he's got a very thin cut on the green. I really like the look of this one because it's very different to anything we've seen so far. Judd manages to cut the green in the middle pocket and come around 2 cushions in good position for the reds. On my first attempt, I had the green a little bit too close to the cue ball, and what this meant was when I potted it, I had too thick of an angle to get round onto the reds. So after this, I moved the green a little bit further down the table. This made it a little bit thinner, but it still wasn't that hard of a shot. It was plain ball, so the only real difficulty was controlling the speed. I was happy to get it pretty much spot on, but I'm expecting to see harder shots coming up. And now for the Mark Allen snooker escape that I'm sure everybody's been waiting for. Mark was able to find a narrow line around 5 cushions to escape a really awkward snooker and land perfectly safe on the yellow. He then recreated the shot perfectly in a post-match interview, which is kinda stealing what we do, so I'm going to have to watch out for that in the future. Either way, I was having difficulty with the black, which was very close to being online. On my third attempt, I then hit the shot way too hard, but managed to get the correct line, so I decided to back it off a bit on my fourth attempt and go for it again, and this time I more or less played it perfectly. I was really happy with the result of this, even if it took me longer than I wanted. Mark Selby's next with another great shot, getting this crucial treble in the middle of a 147. This is another one where you've really got to consider what Mark's trying to do here and the importance of it going right. He's in the middle of a maximum break here. That said, this time I don't believe the pot itself to be anywhere near straightforward. In fact, I found it a real challenge to pick up the correct angle and hold the cue ball. I kept hitting it too high and allowing it to roll on too far. Because of how close together the balls were, it was really hard to see the correct angle. I eventually got it right, although it did take me 4 attempts, which isn't bad. Mark Allen gets a chunky amount of backspin on the cue ball here with this impressive shot he plays against Judd Trump. So the shot choices on the last 3 shots in particular have been a lot more like it, and this is the first one that had me a little bit worried I wasn't going to be able to play it. You need to screw the cue ball into the cushion with a lot of backspin on left hand side. I was struggling to play this shot hard enough to make the cue ball arc and get back down the table for the black. It took me 5 attempts, but eventually I got about as close as I could, but not perfect. Judd Trump himself now with a key long pot in the very same match. Another crucial long pot, but I believe this one's a little bit tougher than the previous ones we've seen, as Judd had to dig down a little bit off the cushion and get the cue ball onto the green and the brown. I was a little bit disappointed with this one to start off with because I just didn't seem to pick up the potting angle very quickly, and when I did I hit it a little bit too hard. It was unlikely I was going to flick the green on the way past, so I was just looking to get on the green or the brown somehow, and I managed to do that after 5 attempts, which probably wasn't too bad. Noppon Saengkham had a very successful tournament, and it was this green that helped him get over the line and into the semi-final. This was a really attacking shot to play because he would have known with a points deficit if he'd missed it he could have lost the match. However, the shot itself wasn't that challenging. I was really happy to get it more or less perfectly on my first attempt, but this was more of a pressure shot than anything else, and he missed the next red. We have yet another Mark Allen shot coming up after we find Zhao, who's from Ramsgate, Kent, which is there. Annoyingly, this looked again to be another relatively straightforward shot. Get the plant and spin the cue ball back down the table. However, when I tried this, I realised the gap in between the reds was actually quite large, and the angle was actually really awkward to get the cue ball back down the table. It needed more left-hand side than backspin, or you would end up screwing the cue ball back into the middle pocket, which I believe actually happened on my 6th attempt here, or maybe 7th. Yep, there we go. I really wasn't expecting it, but this was the most difficult shot to play so far, and I wasn't able to get the cue ball far enough back down the table. There was a lot of good shots on this list, but I still feel like they've missed quite a few out. For example, I found for myself this shot from Ryan Day in the final, and since he won the tournament, I thought it would be unfair not to include this shot. This was a difficult and fairly crucial long pot that Ryan cued really well, so I definitely wanted to add it to the list. I'm sure if I watched all the way through the coverage, I would have found some better shots than what was just on the ITV Hot Shots. Either way, I was really struggling with this one to pot it and screw the cue ball back far enough. Eventually I got it, but didn't quite hit the side cushion. However, what had more spin on it, this shot or Mark Allen's shot from earlier? Cue the music. Both these shots had a lot of spin on them, so they both received 4 spinning tornadoes. However, I think Mark Allen's just looked fractionally better the way the cue ball came back off the cushion, so he's this week's winner. So for the results, I'm giving 3rd place to Mark Allen with this plant. I wasn't expecting to give it to this one, but having played it, it's just such a tough shot to get right. 2nd place goes to Mark Allen's snooker escape. This may have looked a little bit elaborate, but having thought about it, I don't think there was an easier way to get out of this snooker. But 1st place goes to Mark Selby's treble, mostly because it was in the middle of a 147, but it was still a great shot to control the cue ball.